Good morning. My name is Lori Hurwitz. I'm the Associate Vice President of Alumni Relations here at Tulane, and welcome to our 9th annual Women Making Waves Leadership Conference. Apologies for our delay this morning, but we promised to catch up, and we hope you enjoyed the musical accompaniment to your breakfast, which was probably better than Michal wrapping her speech to that. So we're so excited to welcome you back to campus for the first Women Making Waves since before the pandemic, 3 days exactly before the pandemic, and we can say it among friends, women always like to have the last word, and apparently we did. While we are getting started, I first want to take a moment and thank a few people quickly. To the incredible staff of the Alumni and Professional Development team at the Alumni Association, Nicole, Sarah, and Nina, thank you for everything you've done to put this together. Our incredible board and Career and Professional Development Committee, as well as the volunteers that are helping us today. So thank you to all of you. And of course to our alumni speakers. We're so excited you're here. And thank you for the time that you're giving to Tulane today. Like many of you, this is my first in-person Women Making Waves, having joined the Tulane community in the middle of the pandemic. Over the last 3 years, I have seen the Tulane community come together to overcome challenges, celebrate achievements, and learn from each other in so many different ways. Today can be a microcosm of everything Tulane has to offer as we lift women's voices, highlight their accomplishments of our alumni, and inspire each other to raise together as leaders. As we get started this morning, I want to encourage you to do 2 simple things. First, connect with someone new today. The value of the Tulane Alumni Network gets exponentially bigger every time you meet a new Tulanean. And second, use today as a springboard to get more engaged with the Tulane alumni community. Take part in one of our other career programs, join an affinity community, attend an event hosted by your regional club. There are events and volunteer opportunities available to our alumni, and I hope you will stay engaged with us no matter where you are in your career or your life. And with that, I am delighted to introduce someone who has chosen to keep Tulane an important part of her life. We are very lucky to have with us one of our star volunteers to serve as your MC today. Millie Beth Curry is a 1989 graduate of Newcomb College and went on to receive her master's degree in the sciences at Loyola. Despite her English major, Millie Beth teaches middle school science in South Carolina. She cares deeply about career preparation and empowerment for women, which makes her a natural guide today for your day. Over 20 years ago, Millie Beth jotted down an idea after talking with some of her female students about being overlooked in their classes. From that note, she launched Women in Charge, Engineering Women's Lives, dedicated to helping young women to understand the connections between what they are learning in the classroom and experiencing in the real world. Millie Beth has led thousands of young women to achieving their goals through self-reflection and putting ideas into action, and I am pretty sure she has some plans for you today. When she is not busy with her students, Millie Beth is an active volunteer for Tulane. She serves as a member of the Tulane Alumni Association Board of Directors and the chairwoman of the Career and Professional Development Committee. Millie Beth and her husband, Dr. Bill Basco, who's a 1988 graduate of Arts and Sciences, and also the co-president of the Alumni Club of Charleston, are the proud parents of 3 children, one of whom is a Tulane alumna, and they also host the annual Charleston Alumni Crawfish Boil. Ooh, that was a lot of words. Please join me in welcoming Millie Beth.
Well, thank you, Lori, and it is so fantastic seeing everybody here. Welcome, everyone, and here's to Women Making Waves, and also finding the leadership and the leader within you. Today, I do want to say, is all about creating more leaders, more women leaders, and strengthening more women leaders through fellowship and mentoring, and that is what Women Making Waves is all about. I know it from experience it in previous years, and it's fabulous and fantastic to have you back in person. So, as they say, empowered women, empower women, and everyone else. So, before I introduce our keynote speaker, I would like to share a few housekeeping notes with you. If you have not installed the conference app, please take a moment and do so. The QR code can be found on the schedule handout. There's on your table. The app offers breakout session descriptions, speaker bios, an attendee directory, community pages to facilitate conversations and build those connections. And it's really, really helpful afterwards when you're trying to find somebody you met that was very interesting, and you can keep connected. All sessions will take place right here on the second floor of the LBC. You'll find specific session locations on the app, but also outside in the hall, and the posters label each room. Restrooms are located down the hall at the back of the open seating area if you go around the corner on this floor, and please be sure to silence those cell phones during sessions. It's now my pleasure to introduce the 2023 Women Making Waves keynote speaker, Michal Shapira, a 1995 graduate of Newcomb College and head of marketing solutions and brand studios of Warner Brothers Discovery. Most recently, Michal oversaw strategic partnership marketing across the entertainment and news division's multi-platform footprint, including HBO Max, TBS, TNT, True TV, Cartoon Network, wait, there's more, Adult Swim, CNN, HLN, and CNN Digital. Since joining the company in 2014, she has been focused on the development of innovative, best-in-class brand programs and drives to the results for marketing partners. She also managed the news, property trade, and events efforts, including the CNN experience and the CNN's role in the company's cross-portfolio upfront. Previously, she held several leadership positions, not surprising, within the ad sales and department of the Wall Street Journal, and served as the executive director and head of Condé Nast Studio. Within her career, she also held several digital marketing-focused roles at AOL and iVillage. Under Michal's oversight, the marketing solution and brand studio teams have been honored with notable industry recognition, including 2 Gold Muse Awards and 4 Gold and Silver Anthem Awards for purpose-driven work in 2022. She was honored by Synopsys with the Top Women in Media Award in 2019, and twice by She Runs It with a Changing the Game Award in the Brainwave category. And, not surprising, in 2017, she was awarded Working Mother of the Year. In addition to receiving a bachelor's degree in sociology and economics from Newcomb College, she also earned a master's degree in business administration from Goizueta Business School at Emory University. She resides in Manhattan with her husband and 3 sons, and I believe her son is in this room at this time, celebrity. Please join me, though, just welcoming Michal Shapira. It's a pleasure and it's an honor, and I think you're going to really get a lot out of this moment. Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. That was so nice. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. Need my glasses now. Okay. So thank you again so much for that lovely introduction and for inviting me here today. I have to say the lineup of speakers sounds really impressive, so I think it's going to be an amazing day all around. I'm really excited to be here. And I'm really excited to be back at Tulane. I am a proud alumna, as you just heard, graduated in 1995, lived in Sharp dorm. Anybody else? Sharp? Yeah, love it. That's where I lived, obviously, freshman year. And since then, I've been back for jazz fests, college reunions. I even came back for the NBA All-Star Game a couple of years ago. And I brought my family. It happened to be during Mardi Gras, so my kids got to experience all sorts of things that they wouldn't have otherwise experienced. And here they are at Riley and also enjoying a few beignets. I even got married in New Orleans, believe it or not. This is my husband and me doing a second line parade we did it after rehearsal dinner, which we had at the Windsor Court. And as a college student, that's me, you'll see in a minute, and please do not judge the hair, okay? So sorry, back then the perm was a necessary thing, and yeah, I wish it didn't happen. But as a college student, I fell in love with this city that is just so special, dare I say, magical. And when I first visited, I just felt this vibe and this energy that I had never felt before. And I knew that Tulane was not only going to give me that education, that really incredible education that I wanted, but also a very unique college experience. And that was very intriguing to me. And it turned out to be one of the best decisions that I really ever made. And yeah, now my oldest son is starting his own college application process, and so I couldn't wait to bring him here. And when I was asked to speak at today's event, I didn't hesitate for a moment. I'm just so thrilled to be here with all of you, and very proud to have my son in the audience, and we have our campus tour tomorrow. So that'll be fun. So a little bit more just about me. I was born and raised, believe it or not, in Israel. And I moved to the States when I was 10 years old, and I didn't speak a word of English whatsoever. I moved to Queens, New York, initially, and then from Queens, I moved to Huntington, Long Island, and then to a suburb of Chicago, and then to Asheville, North Carolina, where I spent junior and senior year of high school. And most of my friends from Asheville, who I graduated with, attended North Carolina schools. But as you know, I bucked the trend, and instead of, many of them, by the way, went to UNC Chapel Hill, which is an amazing institution, and instead I came to Tulane. And after graduation, I moved to Laguna Beach, California, because my Tulane roommate was from there, and she was trying to convince me to move out there and to live with her. And I loved it, but I came back to New Orleans for a couple of years. And then I went to the Goizueta Business School at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, where I received my MBA. I was in a 2-year full-time program there, and I loved that too. But while I was there, I did an internship in New York at Viacom. It was at MTV Networks, which was part of Viacom, which is now Paramount. And I just fell in love with it, with media, with living in New York, the whole thing. And so after coming back to school, I decided that when I graduated, I would move back. And I've been there ever since, so 24 years now, and have raised 3 children. I live on the Upper West Side, and really love it. But I also love coming down here as much as I possibly can. But as hard as it was to move around so much and always be the new girl, I learned how to introduce myself real quick, you know. What it did is it really helped me become who I am today. And I can adapt very easily to just about any situation. I can strike up a conversation with just about anybody and find some kind of common ground. And it just made me not only brave, but also really open, really flexible, and certainly inclusive, because I know what it feels like to be the outsider, because I've done it so many times. So as I thought about what I want to talk about today, where I netted out is I thought I'd share with you 5 lessons that I have learned over the course of my life, which have been particularly impactful and helped mold and shape my career, and just helped me become a better leader today. All right, so lesson number 1, be you. I know it seems so simple, but a lot of people really struggle with it, and only you know what's right for you. So follow your heart, and as a derivative of that, don't should yourself. So what do I mean? Here's a statement people will tell you. You should major in such and such. This is more for the students in the room. Well, I went into undergrad not really knowing what I was going to major in. I opened up the course book, and I was immediately drawn to courses like Women in Developing Countries. And ultimately, that led me to a major in sociology. Many of my classes happened to be cross-listed with women's studies and economics, and so I ended up having enough credits to minor in those 2 as well. But to be clear, I had no idea what I was going to do with a major in sociology or either of those minors. I didn't want to do research. I didn't want to teach, but that's okay. It didn't really matter. I was young and I was just still trying to figure myself out. Little did I know that it would ultimately lead me down the absolute right path. Because when I graduated and decided to get my MBA, as it turned out, my undergrad studies in sociology were a fabulous foundation for a focus and ultimately a career in marketing. Because knowing how people interact and behave and live, that is critical to understanding how to market to them, right? So although my journey wasn't particularly intentional, I followed my heart and it all kind of came together in the end. Here's another should that people will say. They will say, you should get a job in such and such field, right? Well, early in my career, I made several very off the beaten path decisions, passing on many really good on paper, resume building opportunities to, again, follow my heart, follow my passion, for the potential gain of working on something that was more meaningful to me and more creative, which is something I was looking for. So for example, when I graduated from business school, many friends of mine were getting jobs at Fortune 50, Fortune 100 companies that recruited out of my program. It was 1999, and so really early days of the internet and digital media, and I decided that it just interested me more to go work in that new field than to follow this more traditional path. Now, don't get me wrong, the program was fabulous, and for many of my classmates, those jobs were exactly what they wanted and were the exact right choice. But for me, I was curious and I was more interested in being on the forefront of all that was happening in that new space. So I took a job with this lesser known company called iVillage.com. Back then we said the .com, and made probably half of what my classmates made coming out of school. And for those of you who don't know, iVillage was a women's focused website. It was made up of a bunch of what we today call blogs. We didn't call them that then. And it later got bought out by NBC Universal and folded into the Today Show. So it doesn't exist. You won't find it anymore, sadly. But years later, people would ask me, hey, Michal, how did you have the foresight to know that a career in digital was going to be so desirable and in such high demand, and those skills that you learned so desirable? And the truth is, I'm not sure that I did, you know? I just followed my heart and my gut instincts of what I wanted to do and what I thought would make me happy. And I truly believe that if your job is also your passion, the rest, the money, the recognition, the titles, all of that will follow. And it's been absolutely true for me, and I've actually seen people crash and burn miserably when they've tried to reverse it and chase those other things first. All right, one last should before we move on. People will say, your career should never take a sideways turn. Truth is, it could, and it might. And you will make decisions that might not be right in the end. You will learn from those experiences and you will turn them into opportunities. So in my case, at one point in my career, there was one particular role that I was elevated into. It was a bigger, high-profile role, and it seemed like such a logical next step in my career. It was a promotion, a bigger title, bigger team, more responsibility, everything you'd want, in theory. Except, after being in it for a while, I realized that the actual role didn't allow me to be as creative and as forward-thinking in the way that I wanted for my own personal and professional development and growth. And I didn't feel challenged enough. So what did I do? Well, I took the matter into my own hands, and I worked nights and weekends, and I put together I drafted this whole new job description for a whole new role that did offer me all those things. And I walked into my boss's office and I handed her the proposal, and guess what? It worked. So the point is sometimes building and growing a career means also sort of veering off that proverbial ladder. And sometimes it could mean leaving your job. If you find yourself not being challenged and wanting to do something more or different, and you've exhausted all avenues of trying to do it where you are, it might just be time to leave, and that's okay. Don't ever shrink to fit into places that you have outgrown. And don't fear an unconventional path, because if you're unique, your career will be unique. Okay, moving on to another lesson. Build relationships. Start now. I have always sought to befriend people that I work with, mainly because work should also be fun, and we spend so much time there, but also to build my network. One of my biggest accomplishments over the years is that I've built a strong and thriving network. All of these former colleagues who are now friends also happen to be excellent industry contacts. I tap into them often, and they do the same, and it's been a huge factor in my success. Studies show that having friends at work boosts productivity and personal engagement, but it also advances careers. Here's an astounding stat. Networking helps fill 85% of positions. In my case, networking helped me realize that a job like mine even existed. And throughout my career, I can honestly say it's how I've gotten all my jobs. Nothing against recruiters, they do an amazing job. I just have never gotten a job through a recruiter. It's always been word of mouth and personal recommendations. So, for students in the room, while you're in school, you should have access to alumni lists by industry and city. I got my first job in media that way, through an alumni of the business school. And we met for coffee, we talked. He didn't have a job for me, but he introduced me to his friend, and she did. And she hired me. LinkedIn is also a fabulous tool. We didn't have it back then. I hired my most recent executive assistant from Tulane. She reached out to me on LinkedIn cold, and I ended up hiring her. The idea was to give her sort of a foot in the door and then help her graduate to a bigger role on the team. But here's a bit of LinkedIn advice. When you send a request, make sure that you state your case in the message. Don't just ask to connect. Tell the person why you want to connect up front. Personalize it as much as possible so it doesn't feel like a generic outreach. Some of these executives are getting dozens and dozens of these a day. I also recommend that you uncover those hidden networks, right? Your friends' parents, your parents' friends, your neighbors. Talk to anybody and everybody. You never know where it may lead, even your teachers. I recently hired a director on my team through a recommendation from her professor, who happened to be a former classmate of mine. So in general, just networking has helped me find great roles on my team. It's also helped me get behind the scenes references on prospective hires. Don't think that's not happening. It's happening all the time. It's helped me make a lot of decisions. Okay, here's another important stat. 70% of jobs aren't even publicly posted. And if they are, by the time that they're posted, many hiring managers already have candidates lined up. Networking increases your access to those job opportunities, and this is particularly true for the more senior positions. Lastly, when building your network, build it in real life. In my opinion, the best way to build relationships is by spending time with people in person, not over the phone, not over Zoom. The most impactful way is face-to-face if you can. Go to coffee, go to lunch, have drinks. It's the best way to truly connect with someone and have a conversation without distractions. It's also, I think, a way to show up as your whole self, which makes you more memorable. Okay. The next career lesson I've learned, this is the third, risk takers get noticed. So be one. My kids, including my son in the back, all play basketball, and there's a saying in basketball: you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I actually think that's a really good lesson in life in general. So I urge you to raise your hand for that impossible job task, project. When I was at Condé Nast, Apple introduced the first generation iPad, which was a really big deal, if you remember. And the company launched its iPad magazine app business. They translated certain titles. They went first with these three: GQ, Wired, and Vanity Fair. They translated them to digital versions on the iPad. So I volunteered, and I subsequently was intimately involved with all the ad product development across all three. It was very exciting to be on the front lines of such a project, and it really allowed me to further my interest and knowledge of product, of technology, and innovation. What's another way to get noticed? Build something new. So most recently, as you heard, I was the SVP and head of marketing solutions and brand studios for Warner Brothers Discovery across all these wonderful brands. One of the things I'm most proud of during my time there is launching the very first in-house brand studio for, at the time, CNN, and we called it Courageous. It was one of the reasons I was hired there in 2014, and the idea was if brands that advertised with us didn't have creative like TV spots or digital ads, we could make it for them. So we even expanded it further to branded content, short and long form. And as we grew, we were doing experiential, we were doing events, podcasts, even things like feature-length films, 1 hour, 2 hour brand-funded films. We were essentially like an in-house agency. I wrote the business plan, I got the investment, and Courageous was born. It was named after Ted Turner, who was the founder of CNN. He had a famous boat where he won the America's Cup as an amateur racer. So we took the spirit of that and we named the team Courageous, and our tagline was "Be bold, be brave, be courageous." And when we first established Courageous, we knew we had to have a very specific point of view because the market was already saturated with brand studios. And so by all measures, we were late to the game. Our guiding principle was we didn't want to try to be everything to everyone because then we feared we'd be nothing to no one. So, drafting off the journalistic heritage of CNN, we deliberately decided to specialize in bold, culturally relevant, insight-informed creative, and documentary-style premium storytelling. At the time, we were competing with BuzzFeed and New York Times on the digital side, and Vice on the TV side. BuzzFeed was very popular, if you recall, with things called listicles. And New York Times, similarly, with paid posts, which were really articles. And Vice just had this edgy, controversial, almost shouty kind of content tone. So I would say to clients, look, if you're looking for those things, totally fine. Go there. They are the best at doing that. But if you want captivating storytelling told by real journalists, especially short and long form films, you should come to us. And not only could we make it, we could also distribute it across TV, digital, and our social footprint. And the strategy worked. It really earned us that credibility because we weren't just trying to blindly sell our clients. So we honed in on a few differentiators. Our award-winning staff of brand journalists, many whom we hired from the editorial side. Our global access, we really prided ourselves on being able to shoot anywhere in the world, even in the most remote of locations at the drop of a hat. We had executed over 60 international shoots in 30 different countries. And we offered that cross-platform distribution at scale. So the value prop was we were a one-stop shop. We could make the content, and then we could make sure that the right people saw the content. Well, it was incredibly successful, and over the past 7 years has grown to be an industry-leading studio, earning significant revenue, winning tons of industry awards, and very much revered as best in class. So here's a short video, just so I shut up for a little bit. Here's a short video that tells this story, and I just want to note everything you see in here is work that was done for and funded by brands or advertisers. And you see, if you look on the bottom right, you'll see their logos. Okay, here it goes.
The most beautiful things in life cannot be seen, cannot be touched. They must be felt.
I want Spurgle to be a global billion-dollar brand. To do that, I gotta keep on working.
Little shifts for us were huge shifts.
Doing what you truly love to do will make you an all-star in the most important game there is.
Young women are going to stand up for themselves because these women have done it first.
Big bitch energy. It's me.
The perception is that one color works for all.
When people work together, they can solve major problems.
Text less, live more. What I love is the living more part.
The greatest loss for a person is to have a story that is not being told.
So that's courageous. And the point I really am trying to make here is that some people like to stay tucked in, under the radar, safe, but not me. I would argue that if you want to stand out, if you want to get noticed, you have to be daring, you have to be fearless, you have to take risks, and it will pay dividends in the end. Okay, career lesson 4 of 5. Leading is every day. You should know everyone is watching all the time, even if you don't think that they are. So set the example, think about the legacy that you want to leave behind, and work hard. All these trends like quiet quitting, I don't think it's going to serve anybody well in the long run. So don't fall into that trap. Be kind, be helpful, caring, have empathy. You don't know what anyone is dealing with behind the scenes at any given point in time. And I'm a firm believer that what goes around comes around. It's not just about being a good human being. It's actually good for business. When you care, employees will stay. They are more loyal, and your retention will be higher. And we saw that ring particularly true during COVID. COVID was a real test of leadership, in my opinion. Offices were shut down. I don't tell you that. Everyone was first forced to work from home. And for Courageous, we couldn't all of a sudden travel and shoot all the content that we love to shoot out in the field. That was what we were sort of all about. So as a manager, I encouraged my team not to focus on what we can't do or where we can't be at that time. I saw COVID as an opportunity to build new muscle, to develop new skills and new ways of being creative and working together. I told my team I didn't want us to just survive through COVID. I wanted us to thrive. So one thing we did was pivot immediately to a remote production world. So instead of shooting in the field where there's that close contact, we captured footage via WebEx and Zoom, and we edited it into really interesting assets and stories, and it was obviously much safer. We sent camera kits to subjects' homes. We taught them how to set it up, and then we created video villages where we could direct them from afar. So sure enough, we didn't shut down. We actually seized the opportunity and came out of COVID stronger as individuals and as a team, all the while learning new capabilities which are still useful today. And we helped our clients who were CMOs and brand marketers and agencies. They were frankly paralyzed in that moment. I don't know if you remember, most of you probably were in the same position, just trying to figure out what to do. Everyone was reevaluating the tone and the creative of their existing campaigns, asking themselves, did they make sense? Is it appropriate in such an unprecedented time, or are there other messages that are worth communicating? So I'll give you one example. We had a whole marketing plan for one of our clients, AT&T, and we decided to just scrap the whole thing. Instead, we produced several spots for them that communicated the ways that they were helping medical professionals and frontline workers during those early days of COVID, and how AT&T FirstNet was doing its part. For those of you who don't know, FirstNet is AT&T's communication network that provides direct connectivity for first responders like firefighters, police, hospitals in times of crisis. They learned this from 9/11, how important it was for those entities to not compete with everybody else and be able to reach each other in such critical situations. So we told that story, and we told the story of how AT&T FirstNet was working with the U.S. Navy to support the mission of the USNS Mercy. That was a hospital ship in Los Angeles. Our team also worked with AT&T to collect thousands and thousands of assets from employees across the country who submitted their stories of working on the front lines and helping their customers and communities, and we turned them into employee appreciation assets for social. Again, just a complete pivot from what they were initially supposed to be doing and the creative they were supposed to be running at that time. Okay, last lesson, lesson number 5, which I have learned, is find purpose. You don't have to work at a nonprofit to have purpose or to make a difference. And for many like me, it's something that makes them feel truly fulfilled. Courageous is a perfect illustration of that. We did a lot of work for brands that had a purpose-driven or mission-driven story to tell. And we capitalized on a trend where consumers didn't want to hear about a brand's product or service anymore. They wanted to hear about a brand's story. They wanted to hear it, they wanted to feel it, they wanted to connect with it, and they wanted to know that a brand's values aligned with theirs. So I'll give you one example. Hulu came to us looking to promote season 3 of The Handmaid's Tale. Anyone here watch the show? Yeah? Me too. It's a great show. So, of course, they already had made a trailer, and you know, that the whole point of that is just to give you like a sneak peek into the show. And theoretically, they could have just handed us that trailer and said, look, run this across all your channels like just a regular commercial. But they wanted more. And as it turned out, season 1 had launched amidst the Women's March. And they saw just how so many people engaged in it and were moved to action. So Hulu knew that there was an opportunity to help its active fans be just an even bigger part of this movement. And of course, while achieving their objective of raising awareness for the season premiere. So, knowing that the theme of the show was history is written by those who tell it, Courageous did some research and uncovered this insight. Only 8% of statues in the U.S. are of women. In New York City, the numbers are even worse. Out of 150 statues, there are 145 of men and only 5 of women. So we launched the Shape the Future campaign in partnership with Hulu and their agency, and for one day, we brought statue parity to New York City. We created 140 statues of women. Now, these were silhouettes, and they were made of mirrored material, so they weren't actual women, and that was very purposeful, right? The idea was you could see yourself reflected in the mirror. And so anyone, any passerby, any attendee could say, hey, this could be me. So to give it legs beyond just the one-day event, we also filmed it and we distributed it. So I have another video to share. Check it out.
I can't think of any statue off the top of my head.
I can't recall a single female statue.
There's more statues of animals than there are of women. We should just be statues.
Yeah. really gave me a chance to look at myself. Yeah, I'm good the way that I am.
Representation gives us strength. It gives us confidence that nothing else really can.
I see my mom. We can all remember where we were and how we got to where we are now.
Create the future you want to see.
That little girl's the best, right? There are 26 statues of animals, in case you're wondering. Well, so the results were incredible. The Handmaid's Tale Season 3 had the highest viewership in franchise history. The event garnered incredible social and earned media coverage. And although it was initially supposed to just be a one-day event in New York City, the client loved it so much that they asked us to replicate it in Atlanta, in Boston, and in San Francisco on key days like Women's Equality Day, because what do you know? The stats are just as horrific in those other major cities as well. So finding purpose also very much extends to leadership. And I firmly believe that when you get to a certain point in your career where you should give back. According to a report released by the World Economic Forum in 2022, it's going to take 132 years to reach gender parity. It was 100 before the pandemic, so sadly we lost some ground there. I'm a big believer in women being there for other women, for guidance, for help, for support. Although it was a long time ago now, for those of you who are students or early year alumni, I still very much remember being in your shoes. So I try to do my part. Mentorship is another area I really believe in, but not in like the traditional one-to-one sense. The word mentor sometimes feels kind of forced and limiting to me, like you can only have one mentor to one mentee. And the truth is that my entire career, I've just searched for other women, right, all around me that I could learn from, look up to, and be inspired by. And I wouldn't say I've had one single woman mentor, but I've learned from so many. And not just those who are more senior than me either. And I plan to continue to do so, and I just would encourage you all to do the same. And since this is a women's focused event, the last point I'll make is, and I felt really compelled to add this, do not under any circumstances accept sexism, whether it's overt or not. I was once talked down to in such a disgusting way by a man in power who was more senior than me and had just a massive ego that I had to call him after the meeting. I was really calm, I was super matter of fact, very professional, and I just told him, like, you can't ever treat me like that ever again. Well, he immediately apologized and said, look, he had no intention of making me feel that way, but it was so obvious that I was not the first. Well, guess what? After that call, he never did speak to me like that ever again, and we worked together for over 5 years after that. Here's another example. We were once in a weekly virtual meeting, and it had like hundreds of people in it. And two men decided to have some like idle banter while everybody was joining via Zoom. You know how it goes, just killing time until, we were achieving quorum. Well, one says to the other, hey, do you have all your Christmas presents yet? And the other says, I have no idea. The wife takes care of all of that, and all I gotta do is show up. Right? So the insinuation is I make the money and, the wife is at home spending it. Well, to all the working women on the phone, it just felt really uncomfortable and frankly gross. So one of them, who's a friend of mine, complained to HR, and many of us said something directly to the men. We just couldn't sit silently, and we had to let them know that this bro behavior was just not acceptable. So if you hear something like that, don't let it go. Speak up. And if not in the moment, in a public situation, it's fine. Then do it after. Call them privately and tell them. Hold them accountable for their actions, for you and for the generations of women to come after you. So in summary, hopefully the lessons I've shared helped you even a little. I'm hoping to meet some of you today. Please come find me, or feel free to follow up if something that I said resonated with you. I have all of my information here. Thank you very much for having me here today.
If you can just stay one moment. First of all, what an inspiring way to start our day and kick it off. I just kept writing all the good ideas. So we would like, actually, you covered it up. Sorry. We wanted to please accept this as a token of our appreciation for all the wise words that you shared. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it was great. Thank you. So I did keep writing and writing and writing, and those words will be going back to young learners that I work with every day. So first of all, thank you. We have a few things to talk about just so we know how we're going through the rest of the day. I do want to just highlight the takeaways, not the 2 or 3 pages I wrote, but first, one takeaway is make a proposal, create your own path. You have an idea, make it happen. Propose it. Maybe adjust and change, but that's the takeaway. Don't shrink to fit into a place you've outgrown. Profound. Risk takers get noticed. Take a shot, raise your hand. Be a differentiator. Leading is everyday and positive leadership with relationships. And I liked that if you need to find a leader, look in the mirror. And, I think it's important for everybody in here, male and female, everyone, that leadership really does include action, even small actions, and you are an influencer. Everything you do and say, people take that, and you have that leadership and that leader within, and you need to use that in a positive way. So even if you feel like you're not important, you are an influencer. So for today, with the business, we have 2 sets of breakout sessions. Each session will take place in one of the 3 rooms across the hall. We will have networking break between the sessions, and that brings me to picking your passions. Try to pick 2, because this is a way for us to link up and see similarities or ask why in the world they had certain passion little stickers. So be sure to, I couldn't choose. I really wanted to have a whole long one, I might add. We're also asked that you please take time to attend your session, the second session. Let's stick it in with this together all day long, because you're going to walk away with so many valuable bits of information. Please return to this room for our networking luncheon and her stories panel discussion. So lunch is going to be served starting at 12:30, and her stories discussion starts just about 1 o'clock. Updates and announcements will be shared through the app, so once again, go ahead and load that up. And we encourage you to join communities on that app and discussions and reach out to people that you've met or heard wise words from. Our first panel discussion will begin in 10 minutes, so please make your way to your chosen sessions rooms and across the hall. And thank you so much. All right, enjoy your day. And Women Making Waves.